Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is ScottReisch of CrimeTalk, and thanks for watching. Let's get straight to the docket. First, did you donate to the Lori Vallow Defense Fund? Second, meet the guy, other than maybe Lori Vallow, who if you hang out with him, your life expectancy goes way down. Third, Micheal Avenatti is released from pretrial confinement detention, and he is headed west. And an old cold case solved through genetic genealogy. Absolutely fascinating. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day, and you all get to choose our dumb criminal contestant winner of the week. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is ScottReisch of CrimeTalk, and thank you for tuning in. If you have not already done so, we would ask you to please subscribe, hit that little bell so that you receive notifications, and you will be notified of when we put up new content. And as always, leave us a comment below. We do review the comments. I try to respond. I simply don't have the time to respond to all of them, but when I can't sleep at night, that's what I do. I try to get to everybody. First on the docket, did you donate to the Lori Vallow Defense Fund? Good. I'm glad you didn't. And why is that? It turns out to be a complete hoax. Apparently, a Lori Vallow Defense Fund was set up on GoFundMe, and it was stated to be set up by her husband, number 5, Chad Daybell. For those of you who correct me and say it's not DeBell, it's Daybell. When journalists reached out to Mr. Daybell through his attorney, they denied any knowledge of the GoFundMe page. What it appears as though is that literally about $5 of the $100 million requested for her defense fund was raised. Maybe the large amount being raised was enough to call it a sham. But she's probably going to need at least a good $250,000, $300,000 for attorneys, assuming homicide cases come down. Investigators and experts gets expensive. I'm still curious as to why Chad Daybell, husband number 5, is not using some of that money from his deceased wife to post that bond. I guess he's kind of lost that loving feeling. Next on the docket, let's meet a guy who, like I said, next to Lori Vallow, if you hang out with him, your life expectancy goes way, way down. Now, this gentleman that I'm referring to is a guy that goes by the name of Drew Tiny Carter. Drew Tiny Carter has been charged with the death of his ex-girlfriend, so to speak, and her name was Jessica Flores. Now, the remains of Jessica Flores were found last week in a wooded area in Indiana. A worker for the city of Gary, Indiana, found the remains and obviously notified the authorities rather quickly. With the use of a cadaver dog, the police were able to recover more remains of Miss Flores. Miss Flores went missing in February of 2019. She had a friend that also went missing, but turned up okay back in March of 2019. The police are being a little tight-lipped about the entire situation, but I can tell you from my experience in something like this, this has drug deal gone bad all over it. When last year, Flores' boyfriend's car was found abandoned in Chicago Heights, outside of Chicago, after being set on fire. After the fire was ultimately extinguished, police found evidence of a large amount of blood in the back seat, along with some of Flores' personal effects. Now, Tiny Carter, Drew Tiny Carter, he's 42, and he is being held without bond for the death of Miss Flores. And the police believe that Miss Flores' death is related to one of 6 homicides that are all connected in some way back to Mr. Tiny Carter. Now, obviously, Tiny Carter is given the presumption of innocence until and if he is convicted in a court of law or he pleads guilty. But apparently, when you hang out with Drew Tiny Carter, your life expectancy goes down exponentially. In fact, a potential witness in this case, a gentleman by the name of George Heath, was found dead with a gunshot wound to the back of his head in his home last month. An apparent associate of Tiny Carter and also Miss Flores. Things aren't looking good for Mr. Carter. Now, he was originally charged early on in this case, but the police had to dismiss the charges because some testing had not been completed. It's now been completed. He's back in custody. We'll see if he is ultimately charged with the other 5 murders in this particular ring of cases, and ultimately whether he's brought to justice for Miss Flores. Tiny, meet Lori Vallow. You all should hang out together sometime. Just saying. Next on the docket, the attorney that everyone loves to hate, even attorneys, Micheal Avenatti. Yes, that's right. Micheal Avenatti, who gained fame and fortune, well, maybe not so much fortune, representing former Playboy model and adult star Stormy Daniels. She allegedly had an extramarital relationship with the president prior to him being the president, and apparently wanted to back out of her non-disclosure agreement. And Mr. Avenatti was there to try and do that for her. Didn't quite work out so well for anyone involved, apparently. Needless to say, as you may recall, Avenatti was convicted this year attempting to extort $20 million from Nike. That's right. He is representing a client that was going to sue Nike, but instead of just looking out for his client's best interest, he thought he would look out for his best interest as well, which would be basically pay me $20 million separate from what you're going to settle with my client, and I will conduct an audit and just really do a good job to make sure Nike doesn't stray away from the straight and narrow ever again. Well, the attorneys at Nike were not amused. They called the United States attorney, had Mr. Avenatti basically repeat the information again, and he was arrested and charged with extortion. He was held in custody in New York pending sentencing, and obviously nobody wants to be in custody right now because of the COVID-19 virus. Well, Mr. Avenatti apparently had suffered a case of pneumonia last year and petitioned to the judge to be released. The judge agreed and said, you can go home to California. You have to have your attorney accompany you across the country on the same airplane, whereupon you will be on house arrest, and you cannot tweet or use the internet while you are there as well. Mr. Avenatti can use this opportunity to communicate with his attorneys on his case pending in California, where he is also charged with some nefarious financial dealings, including allegedly stealing clients' monies that he should have dispersed to those clients. And then back again on the East Coast, he has another theft/fraud suit where Miss Stormy Daniels is the victim, where she alleges that she did not receive some $300,000. And, you know, there's a fine line between a civil case and a criminal prosecution, but the United States attorney sought to help Miss Stormy Daniels out and brought the criminal charge again to try and get her apparently some restitution. Micheal Avenatti, you need to enjoy your time on in-home detention at a friend's house while you're in California, because let's face it, you're not getting probation, you are going to prison. Although your attorneys have filed for a motion for a new trial, highly unlikely that that will be granted in any way. Yeah, you'll take your case up on appeal, which will take at least 2 years at least, going through the federal appellate court process. Good luck. Enjoy your time while you can. Next on the docket, a rather interesting old cold case that was solved here in the state of Colorado, and it is being touted as the oldest cold case solved through genetic genealogy. And basically, as the story goes, an 80-year-old man has been identified as a suspect to a sexual assault of a teenage girl at a Girl Scout camp in Jefferson County, Colorado, nearly 57 years ago. The individual identified is James Raymond Taylor, and he is being charged with the death of Margaret Peggy Beck. And as I said, this case goes back to 1963. And James Raymond Taylor was born in December of 1939. He would be 80 to 81 years old right now. And in all honesty, the police can't find him. Last time they were aware of his whereabouts was that he lived in Nevada at least some 12 years ago, but they have not been able to find him or any record that he was in fact deceased. Now, this case goes back, like I said, to 1963. Peggy was 16 years old when she was found dead inside a tent at a Girl Scout camp at the Flying G Ranch near Deckers, Colorado on August 18th of 1963. She was found when she failed to show up for breakfast, and her teammates at the Girl Scout camp went looking for her. Now, at the time, Peggy lived with her parents and 3 younger sisters in Edgewater, Colorado, which is just a little city just to the west of Denver, but it's located in Jefferson County, which is a big jurisdiction just to the west of Denver. And as stated, the identity of Peggy's attacker remained unknown for decades. Now, Peggy was apparently very excited when she got the opportunity to go to the Mile High Girl Scout camp because this time she was going to be a counselor. And what ultimately resulted in the solving of this decades-old case started back in 2007 when evidence originally collected at the crime scene led to the creation of a John Doe DNA profile. The profile was later entered into the Combined DNA Index System, also known as CODIS. More than a decade later in June of 2019, a more complex profile was created. The updated profile was sent for investigative genetic genealogy testing, which was the key to finding Beck's accused killer, to the sheriff's office. This case is being touted as the oldest case solved through genetic genealogy. So investigators ultimately located and met with the suspects, Taylor's immediate family members, and said that they cooperated and were very integral in confirming that he was a suspect in this case. It was reported that Taylor was married in Colorado in 1961 and had a child in Colorado in the early 1960s. He apparently worked as a television repair man in Edgewater, Colorado, the same city in which Peggy resided. But there's no information that they lived near one another exactly or that they even knew each other. And as stated, James Taylor, people are looking for him right now if he is in fact still alive so they can bring him to trial. The police know that he had a brief and limited criminal history in 1972 and 1974 in the Las Vegas area. And frankly, they do not know whether he is alive or if he is in fact deceased. DNA evidence is very, very powerful, and it helps investigators not only be able to solve a case, but actually be able to prove it. Because when a case gets that old, obviously the witnesses, the people, the officers that were there are more than likely gone, completely deceased. And so how are you going to tell that story unless you can actually show that something was done today and have a witness actually come and testify to it? You don't get evidence in by just submitting a piece of paper. It doesn't happen that way. So even if you think you can solve the case, then you actually have to be able to say, as a prosecutor, how do you prove it? What evidence do you get in to actually say this is the, in fact, person that had done it? This genetic genealogy is a way through DNA evidence to create a DNA profile, see if there is a match through somebody else, and then look and see if those individuals have any relationship to the case at hand and whether relatives, in fact, have it. you're going to see more and more of it, particularly in light of the fact that a lot of these DNA profile testing genealogical sites don't tell you that their database is basically open to the police. I mean, that's good in some ways, bad in others, but there's definitely some privacy interests out there. But you got to be careful who you're giving your DNA to, apparently, particularly if you may have committed a crime some 50 years ago. And scientific evidence in most cases is usually much more powerful than eyewitness testimony. And it reminds me of a quote, FBI manual. I think I've read it before, but I think it is good to refresh people's memory again with this. Remember, wherever the criminal steps, whatever he touches, whatever he leaves, even unconsciously, will serve as silent witness against him. Not only his fingerprints or his footprints, but his hair, the fibers from his clothes, the glass he breaks, the marks he leaves, the paint he scratches, the blood he deposits or collects, all of these and much more bear mute witness against him. This is evidence that does not forget. It is not confused by the excitement of the moment. It is not absent because human witnesses are. It cannot perjure itself. It cannot be prejudiced, be influenced by suggestion, by falsely reinforced identity. It cannot be wholly absent. Only a human failure to find it, study it, and understand it can diminish its value. I think that is so straight on. I've used that in cases before, particularly where the scientific evidence says my client didn't have anything to do with it, but you have witnesses who are saying your client was involved. You say, where's the physical evidence? Where's the evidence that can't be persuaded in any particular way, and because they have their own bias or motivation to achieve a particular result. So remember that. Now, remember, scientific evidence is only as good as the people that are actually testing and preparing it. If you've seen the Netflix series, How to Cure a Drug Scandal, about the labs in Massachusetts, clearly an example of it's only as good as the people testing it, and there has to be actual reliability. And if you want to be a scientist and somebody involved in the lab, you have to remember that you are there just to test. You are not part of the prosecution or the defense team in any way, as those individuals apparently thought that they were doing. And you assume hopefully they're not smoking crack while they're testing the crack. So something to consider. We talked about the other day about, these cold cases, they are not forgotten. Detectives do work on them, and as technology improves over the years and decades to come, more and more of these cases will in fact be solved, because there's always something left at a crime scene. And if the police can get it, and even just the smallest DNA, it's incredible what they can actually do. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Now, our dumb criminal contestant of the day is Lisette Santos. Now, she is 40 years old, and apparently she went into a Walmart, opened up a package of guava, and took a bite of them, and then spit them out. And then she spit on and coughed on a bunch of oranges. Now, this totaled about $347, the oranges and limes that she coughed upon. But needless to say, this is just stupid, all right? Apparently, Miss Santos, when stopped and questioned by the police, was asked if she was aware of maybe this COVID-19 thing going on. And she apparently said yes and smiled and said, I don't have it, and then little chuckled under her breath. Now, Miss Santos, you are our dumb criminal contestant of the day because, well, first of all, I don't know what you're trying to do with the whole COVID-19 thing, but it's just stupid. Why would you go in and eat fruit, spit it out, and then spit and cough on fruit? All right? Now, Miss Santos is stupid also because she had police contact, and guess what? She had an immigration order to actually be removed from the country. So maybe this was her way to get her trip back to Guatemala. I don't know. However, now she faces additional criminal charges. So you are our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about our dumb criminal contestants that we have had throughout this week and see who's actually going to be the winner. Obviously, Miss Santos, our guava and orange coffer. We also have Ashley Stippy, our 23-year-old woman who got in a fight with her partner over TikTok videos. Next, we have our 2 unidentified eluders from Washington State who like to steal from non-for-profit daycare centers. We have Juan Antonio Velez, who likes to grab ladies' butts in the Walmarts as a way of introducing himself and saying, hey, can we get to know you just a little bit better? And then ultimately, we have Terrian Pouncey, who is the man in Chicago who went to rob the hot dog cart and ultimately wound up shooting himself not only in the leg, but the penis. Cast your votes. Let us know who you think the big winner should be and be entitled to a Crime Talk mug. If you'd like to get your own Crime Talk gear, you can do so by hitting the link below. It'll take you right there. Some really cool new stuff there as well. We appreciate you taking the time to watch Crime Talk. We do. We've said this before. There's lots of things that you can be watching on YouTube, and the fact that you take the time to watch our channel does not go unappreciated. We thank you. And hopefully, maybe by Monday, we'll be at 100,000 subscribers. And maybe when we get to 100,000 subscribers, I could actually get somebody from YouTube to respond to any of my emails. We'll just wait and see, and we'll let you know how that goes. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.